time to look at another camera. We've got here Sony CCD-V8AF. Autofocus, not the other thing. CCD-V8AF-E video camera recorder. This takes 8mm tapes. And it's got these controls on the end. And I think the lens hood has been the original plastic thing that screws in there, which holds this, is now broken and gone, so that's just been pushed on, which is, it keeps falling off. If you attach the lens cap and then pull on it, it just comes off, so I don't know what that's all about. The microphone there is detachable. It's interesting. I suppose you plug an external mic underneath there if you want to, instead of using that one. There's the thing for autofocus. The battery goes in the hand grip, which is a bit annoying. And the lens cap can click onto that there, keep it out of the way. The viewfinder is removable. You can take it off. It's got quite a big CRT in there, so we should take a look at that. And it folds out of the way. So the interesting thing about this camera, you see there are some feet there. It has this cover that you push over the front part, and then it clicks into place like that. And then you can put this down on the table and use it as a VCR. And what's usually the bottom of the camera, there's this connector here. And then there's RF modulator with AV in out, which you can connect onto there to use it like a VCR. I've got two of them. I think they're for different regions where the RF frequency is different. That one talks about being in South Africa or Hong Kong or continental European countries, depending on what you set that thing there, I or G, and then there's a channel selector. There's this one here, just has channel 0 or 1, doesn't have that other selector. Not really sure what region that's for. Anyway, so you can use it like a VCR, which is quite neat. Came with this power supply worldwide, which is quite exciting. And it's got this weird plug on it, which is a Euro plug, but we can use this strange thing to get around that problem. It has this battery charge adapter, which opens up and then can open up more if you use this little lever. And you can hear there's a switch, which is that. So something changes when you open this extra side to charge more batteries. And I've even got some of the OG batteries here, but they're not going to work. So those sit in there, and then you sit the charger into there, and then presumably you can charge the batteries. Here's another one. So they're two different capacities. That's an H, so it's 1800 milliamps. This is not H, NP22, 1300 milliamp hour. It says it's charging, but I doubt it will charge. There you go. These batteries will be old and wrecked. They need to be thrown in the recycling. They do keep them because some of the original batteries, interesting to have. Although now we've made the video, we can probably throw them away. Should probably take a look at that and see what it is. It's probably a resistor and a diode, or probably not a diode, since that's already DC output. But a lot of these Nikon batteries, the old school ones, was just an AC transformer, one diode, and then a resistor in series with the AC output, and that's it. Just enough to get a bit of current flowing through the battery. So we'll put this in here. And then you can power it up from here and put a tape in, know what the state of this is, so we'll put in this test tape that we previously ripped the brakes out of. It's a bit of a weird noise. Okay, it seems to be playing. Let's check on the viewfinder. Yep, it's playing. It's got a clean picture. This is confusing because when I first got this quite a long time ago, I tried to play the tape in it, and it wouldn't work. So this was supposed to be a repair video, but I guess it works now. It's very bizarre because another Video 8 VCR that I got also didn't work, and I was going to do a video about that, and then later when I tried it, it worked fine. So anyway, let's take this apart anyway and take a look inside of it. I think the camera works. Let's just try that. Does this work as a camera when you pull this thing off? And you have to do something to tell it to be a camera. It has VTR power. There must be a camera power switch. If that's true. Is it one of those ones that only works when you put a tape? Oh no, there you go, right in front of me. There's a camera power switch there. So you have to turn the camera on separately to the VCR part, which is pretty interesting. It must mean that there's quite independent circuits inside this thing. It doesn't even have a macro. Oh, I can hear it trying to autofocus, but it's not moving the lens. Anyway, the camera seems to work, it just doesn't focus. Okay, let's take it apart. Let's see what the deal is. The battery ejector's here, presumably. Okay, I don't know, what does it grab hold of? Maybe that? Yeah, probably that. And there's a little lever in there that goes into that thing to hold it. Very good. Okay, we're taking this apart. Perhaps we'll have a look inside the viewfinder to start off with. We've got here JIS1 screwdriver. Fits these screws really well. Some kind of clip looking thing there. Not sure how that comes off. Oh, the anode cap. It's kind of sitting proud. Yeah, so it's got a CRT that's big enough to have an anode cap on the side of it. And that sticker was falling off. To indicate present of high voltages, arc anode lead to chassis. What's the chassis? Where is the chassis? I suppose we should do that because we just had this turned on. Perhaps we should try it. We'll discharge this thing. So we'll clip that onto that ground, which is on the outside of the tube. And there's a better way to access that. Goes down to there. Spend half the video just trying to connect this ground wire on. There you go. Okay. Nope. Okay, so we'll try and discharge this, see what happens. So we've got a clip lead to the ground, which is on the outside of the tube, and then we've got a flat screwdriver. I'm going to poke it down there, let's see if we get an arc. No, nothing. Okay, it must be discharged already then. Okay, let's continue. It's a pretty decent sized tube in this. How is that thing held together? Maybe it's just clipped. Pretty reasonable sized tube. The front of it, and then these wires here are going to a row of LEDs along the top with various statuses. Assume that ground was actually connecting the tube, contacting the tube properly. I suppose that's the part number of the tube, 5N5C30. Don't particularly want to destroy this camera right now. It's quite a neat collector item. There we go. There's the front of the tube. Oh, I see. The ground wires just squeezed on there. Pretty neat little tube there. That's how it's grounded, a little tab that touches the conductive paint on the outside of the tube and just sits in there. There's some light pipe type things in the top there for those LEDs. I lost the other ground wire. What happened to it? Did it go somewhere? Oh, that clip thing we were supposed to slide off. Interesting. Neat little CRT. Maybe it's a 1-inch. Looks kind of like it. Seeing the small CRT made me wonder, is it the same that you find inside one of these cameras, which is WVPA2 tube? And it seems similar size, although this, I don't know, is this a CCD camera or a tube camera? Well, we're going to find out soon. But let's see if the CRT in this viewfinder is the same. I'm supposed to do a teardown of these at some point, so let's cheat a little bit and take a look in the viewfinder now. Screw holes filled up with bugs. So that part unscrews because you can slide that in and out, so the tube will be inside there, but we've got to find a way of getting this housing open. It's probably the wrong way to do it. You're supposed to take probably supposed to take the whole camera apart first so that you can get better access to these screws, or they have a much longer screwdriver perhaps. Okay, well that's apart, so let's take this off and have a look. It's quite neat and tidy in there. The cables don't disconnect from this end, unfortunately. They are fixed in place. Those aren't connectors, those are just things for connecting or soldering wires into a board. So let's see, does this come apart in any way? There's another screw here. Oh, look at that. This one hasn't been turned on for many years. That could be a very similar. Oh, I wonder where how that ground was attached in a way that it leans. Oh, I think it was just shoved in there. Just shoved down that hole there. I think that's an equivalent tube. They look quite similarly sized, don't they? One's a Matsushita and the other one's an NEC, and their part numbers are quite a bit different. Yeah, so the tube size is the same. Oh, what's going on? No focus today. Pretty interesting. That's a smaller tube to the other ones we were looking at in the more professional cameras. Let's grab one of those so we can poke it about as well. And it's stuck inside this thing, but... So the glass is... The front is larger on these professional ones, but the length of the tube is almost the same. Oh, it is slightly longer on the larger ones. I found a similarity between these National Panasonic and these Sony camera. Put this back together. Sort of. It's a bit tight in there. The cables, the anode cap thing gets a bit raunched by the housing when you tilt it. Anyway, we're taking this apart, that's what we're doing today. So we'll start off by taking this lid, the cassette door, off. See, there's a bunch of screws with arrows pointing to them. Maybe you have to eject it to get that off. Yeah, machines where you have to do that. I don't know, maybe it just snaps off. It does look snapped off, but I don't think it snapped off then. What is that? Ah, really? I'm pretty sure that went there and that clips onto that, so maybe you don't have to undo those screws. Maybe it would have just clipped itself off. That's very weird. Maybe we should put those back. Are they just for show? I guess that's an emergency way of getting it off, and the normal way would be to open the door first then you can unclip it. The screw doesn't have it. Anyway, yeah, because that's a clip, so it would clip under there. See quite a bit of dust. So there are screws with arrows here. So undo those. Hopefully all the screws are the same on this. There's a screw with an arrow here. A little foot thing comes off. Now there are two screws down there without arrows. There's two there without arrows, but there are two here with arrows. And there's also screws up here with arrows. Oh, those are different screws. Oh, long. They must be going into plastic then. Oh, what do we got on that side? Nothing. Got another one with an arrow on the bottom here. Some tiny screws in there. Don't have arrows. Oh, there's one there as well. Interested to see how sectionalized the camera part is from the recorder part. I know you could get a small portable VCR 8mm, so I wonder if the mechanism inside this is the same as what that has. There's another screw there. That might just be for the strap. Ah, this bottom part comes off. Okay, flexible shield. Is there some movement? That will have to come off. I'm not sure about this microphone. Oh, we'll take the microphone off. There's a screw there. But some of these don't have arrows, so I'm not sure. Maybe they didn't print an arrow on them, or you're really not supposed to take them off. I think you do need to take them off. Probably that as well. Oh look, that all comes off as one piece. And there's a plug in there. A connector on a wonky little board. There's a microphone. Okay, so we know it's CCD now. There's the microphone connector. I guess the other one's for the power for the condenser microphone. Aha, look at that, another screw there. Seems to be held by something somewhere in here, but there's no screws visible. I wonder what that is. It might be that. I think it's that shielding, yeah. Oh, look at that. It's all coming apart now. So there's two arrows pointing to these screws, so I'll have to take those out. The side controls. Oh, you still don't get it off because this shielding sheet goes the whole way under, and there's a screw there holding it on. But it continues. I wonder if we can lift all this stuff out. There's some more screws there that didn't have arrows. Ah, look, there's one there that does have an arrow. That must be important. We might be able to see why the focus mode is not working. Presumably the belt's peeled itself off. The usual issue. Okay, so that comes apart. I think there's some sort of infrared thing there. Maybe that's to do with either white balance or autofocus. Okay, there we go. So the camera stuff looks like it's all done inside this shielded box. And then there's a few cords going between them. Is it possible to separate this? Oh, there's a super little screw there. It's 0. Okay, that was holding the side on. Now the VCR part. Oh, there's the viewfinder. Oh, so that post that the shield strip was connected on was also holding this ground strap with a viewfinder which plugs into there. And now things are almost apart. That wire must come from the battery connector to there. And then these two here will be for the zoom and the recording controls. And get that out of the way. Maybe that's the clip that holds the door on. Okay, try and reduce the stress by undoing some of these cables that go between the two parts. Okay, so that was a microphone cable there, which looks like it just goes through and that's it. That's a grounding strap which unplugs, and then we're left with just two bunches of cables. One that goes into this camera part, so that's got two shielded cables and a couple of non-shielded. Presumably that's the video signal, maybe it says components is video style. And then on the bottom there's another connector, all unshielded. Maybe that's power. It goes to the thing where it looks like zoom motors and things connected, and it comes from deep inside. So we should be able to disconnect that. And then there's one more shielded wire with a plug-in line. Interesting. So now those parts are separated. Let's take a look at the VCR part. So this is potentially a self-contained VCR now. It's quite amazing how difficult it is to focus on very clear and high contrast objects. An 8mm mechanism with a ring loading system. What part of that is not in focus? It doesn't make sense. Okay, let's try again. Will it focus this time? It seems to be better now. Just turned the camera off and on again. Not sure how that helps, but anyway. So there's various clips. Oh, they just snap off. Okay. Maybe this is all very old and brittle. Very thin circuit boards. Oh, there's a screw to undo. Let's see. Oh, the real end sensor. Is that what that's there? Yeah. Well, the start sensor is on the sideboard. So it's got a ribbon. It doesn't go to the bottom board, it goes to another board. There's actually two layers of board in there. I wonder if we can undo this one as well. Take a peek. Although that might be difficult because it's joining to the front with a massive row of connections, and it's joining to the back with a massive row of connections. It might hinge down. That might be the video signal coming off the head in that shielded cable. So that will be the RF amplifier and the other bits and pieces. So there's the video stuff on the bottom here. They call this C process, color, and this one here Y process, so the picture, black and white part, like the actual picture information. This, oh yes, look at that, the control panel hinges down. Yep, because those have little clips on them so they can unclip and hinge down. There's probably a main CPU there for controlling things. Now this should fold out. Theory? Or does this side fold down instead? Maybe, but there's heaps of ground wires to undo first. Another clip. And this might be quite tricky to pull back together after this. Those open up, and ground wires. Now does something undo here where this connector is, that AV sort of thing. There we go. One more clip there. But there's now this brown wire going around there, and then these wires. Oh. There we go, it opens up, all fully open up, so you can do servicing or whatever you need to do to it. It's interesting. Wonder when the capacitors are going to leak and ruin it all. Probably got another couple of years on it. Wonder if this board hinges up as well. Ooh, look at that stuff. So there's a toothed belt from the capstan, presumably. Yeah, down to the reel down there, so we won't have belt slipping issues, so that's good. Although there is a belt there off the loading motor. Disappointing, maybe that's slipping. Very hard to know. Well, it was making a bit of a weird noise. Feels alright. It's probably gone all rubbery. Like all sticky. I need to clip this stuff back together now. Is there anything else we have to do in there before we clip it back? I'm trying to remember where all the bits and pieces went. Brown wire there. And those. That wire was clipped all the way around this thing. That, oh yeah, that did hold it all together. Clips for that. A small short screw there. Did that go in there before the cover? I don't know, I wonder if I can put it in here. And it clicks into place. Then we had these two ground wires probably under the stuff. Out there. From memory, something along those lines. Then the other side had the other long screw on it. It also has some clips. Okay, then the back part, that was just clipped in again. Yeah, I thought before we'd continue on to taking apart the camera, we'll try running this as a standalone VCR. Got the power connected up, but nothing else. That comes from the battery area. And let's try it. Push play. It is running, playing. There's a picture coming out of it, which seems okay. But I think it's creasing up the tape. Something's happening with the roller somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where. I've been watching this for a little while, but something's going on with either the pinch roller or the roller after it, and the tape ends up getting creased. Not sure if we can adjust that. Need all sorts of calibration tools to sort that out. I don't know if that's doing anything. Also that one. Yeah, that's doing bad stuff to my tape. Although this is a rough tape. But yeah, it's wrapping, it's really chewing itself up. I thought it was the tape at first, but what's feeding out is nice and clean, but once it goes through these rollers down here, it turns into a mess. I don't know what it is though. So we're not going to pursue that any further because I don't think it's really worth it. So there's something going on down in there. The tape's fine going across the head, but then it's getting creased. There's lines being put across it, which is rather disappointing. Otherwise this does seem to function okay as a standalone machine, although I didn't try putting a signal in. You need to get a service manual and look at what the procedure is for setting up the alignment of all these little bits and pieces, and it probably involves jigs and special alignment tapes with test signals on them. Yeah, we can't really get that stuff anymore unless you can find it on eBay. But yeah, there you go. A little tiny 8mm VCR function more or less, but it messes up your tape. Next part, let's have a go with this video camera assembly, see what it has to offer us. This is looking quite complicated, a bit like that JVC camera we took apart, or both of the JVC cameras we took apart, which were just a big mess of different pieces all over the place. That's the microphone wire. That's the viewfinder connector. I guess the CCD is in this block. It's all one thing. Well, we didn't really check much where that cable, that came out and went into the VCR part. Where did that actually go? Because it doesn't really matter. I guess when you plug the thing into there, the AV thing, it takes over from the camera. It switches the input signals to the AV thing rather than the camera part. There's some kind of plastic bracket thing. Ah, yes. There we go. So that's why moving the lens makes a weird noise. It's because it's spinning. See, it normally would be like that, but it's spinning the little spindle, which is now ejecting old belt. Sticky, horrible old belt coming out of there when you spin it. Okay, so that's why the autofocus doesn't work. Unfortunately, we can't really do much about that. Belts just get old and get wrecked. So we can see, as we move the focus, this thing here winds its way in and out. So that's either a transmitter or a receiver that does a rangefinder type thing to get the autofocus working to measure the distance to some object. Or if that's something else. Got all kinds of mechanism stuff in there. Lots of little brackety things. I wonder what that does. I don't understand what the point of that is. Or is it where that mounted maybe? Don't know. I think that's either the focus or the zoom motor there. The zoom motor, I'd say. Can't see. Oh yeah, deep in there. Whole thing comes out, but you're going to take that board off first. And then there's more screws under that. That side piece comes off. Oh, there's a lot of business going on here. Just concerned if I unplug too much stuff I won't be able to put it back because I won't know where it goes. I know what that's all about. That box is soldered shut. And that bracket we can't get to because this we can't take off because the screws come through there. So we'd have to open this up. This is all crimped shut. By the look of it, like it would come off in two halves. We'd have to pull that out. It should pull apart, I think. Although that's taped across it. No, it's all sticky and horrible. Okay. Okay, it's coming apart. I think it's stuck by that wire there. No, something else is stopping it. It was opening before. Okay, there we go. Now we're stuck by that. I'm going to desolder that wire. Get a soldering iron turned on. Let's see if this wire desolders itself easily. It's probably put through the hole, isn't it? Hoping if we can just ping it off, then we can put it back again afterwards. And I'll get a desolder pump. So we can peel that off. There we go, and it'll be long enough to put back at the end. Alright. Wow, look at that. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. How far do we need to go with this thing? So if we undid these cables, we could get the other half of this box thing off. I'm going to lose track of where everything went if we're not too careful. Oh, there's a plastic frame thing, which looks like it unhooks two positions, and then this unhooks. Then under this cover, which is soldered down, would be the screws that you'd have to take off to have a look at the CCD. So this must be a complete camera assembly that can function on its own, since the other part was a complete VCR thing that can function on its own. So that's quite exciting. Perhaps should we peel off this or desolder that and have a look? Do we need to? Maybe not. Special Sony chips for doing CCD stuff. Oh, look, there's multiple layers of boards on this thing as well. Looks like that could be unclipped. Although it doesn't fold up because there's ribbon cables all around it. Yeah, you can see there the screws that are holding the circuit board with the CCD part onto the rest of the assembly. Probably won't come off unless the CCD is desoldered from the board, like what we encountered previously. But you can see the legs down there. There's a row of gold legs in there, which will be what come out of the CCD. Maybe two a row down each side. Got that interesting thing going on up there. Do focusing. Probably works with that thing. We got the focus motor there, the zoom motor. There's the cog coming off of that white one. There'll be a little gearbox, presumably. And you can hear that. Ah, yep, so it's that. That's the zoom motor, because you can see the little gears there spinning. So the slipping part's in the lens itself, not all the clutch part, so that you can manually zoom if you want. No macro on this lens, which is interesting. So there should be another device, which I think is that bit there, that metal thing, which will be for adjusting the iris in and out. And now I've touched the sticky belt stuff from there, unfortunately. That's probably enough looking at a Sony camera. It's time to try and put it back together. Pretty interesting. Quite a lot of stuff going on. Imagine trying to design this back in the day before we had Windows computers. Not sure, it was probably from the 80s or very early 90s. The chips don't usually have dates on them, or not dates that I can understand because they're all Japanese. Sometimes you can find a date on something. So it says 8547. Would that be 1985? That one looks like it says 8546. So maybe this is a 1985 thing? Possible? Is there something similar on the VCR we can look at? Although we snapped that mostly back together. Yeah, there's an 8542 on that chip. So maybe this is a 1985 thing? Pretty vintage. Little shielding cap over that motor. Sometimes you can get dates off motors on their labels. Oh, that solenoid there's got an 85 on it. Unless it's all a coincidence, there's quite a bit of 85 going on, so this might be a 1985 machine. There's an 8547 on that. Yeah, so it's done well. 36, 37 years old. Very good. There's the camera. Been putting the camera part back together, but let's not forget we need to take a look inside the charger as well. Very interesting thing that you put the power supply into. It's probably keyed. No, you can stick it into the other hole. Got a thing there to key it. Anyway, let's take this apart and see what the deal is. It's got a little switch, as we saw before. So it's a battery charge adapter. Up to 3 batteries. It would take 8 hours. Wow. So the current just divides between the batteries. This is the power supply. And we'll see if we can get that apart as well. It's got screws. Not sure exactly what comes off on this. Don't know what we're taking apart. Now there's 2 screws that are now removed, but what does that do? It says the release switch must be slid and held to open the opposite side for normal charging. Okay. I'm guessing the bottom part pops off. There's a join down there. There's a warning about something. Must be about the thermal fuse. I guess we've wrecked this now. There's a mechanism there. Oh, it's fallen apart, hasn't it? The springs have come out. There's a little spring thing there for it to open and shut. Yeah, this has quite a lot of stuff in it. A relay and a switch. And then a multitude of ICs. I wonder where that thermal fuse thing they were talking about is. AN6780. There's some op amps. Presumably op amps. There's 4082C. And there's a whole bunch of transistors in there. Wow. There's a lot more stuff than I was expecting to see. There's some pretty fine tracks there. Very interesting. I don't really think I'm going to trace out that circuit. Anyway, let's see if we can take this apart non-destructively. Because I'd still like to keep this for the camera. Assuming I get that back together. Since the batteries are all wrecked, there's not really any point in keeping the charger. I do wonder if these middle ones are something going into a heatsink. You can see how good the JIS screwdriver is there. Able to hold the whole weight of the screwdriver in the screw head. That might come off. No, it's a continuous sleeve. So the only way is these to come out. Okay, but how does that work when the power cord is attached to that one? Unless that can be unplugged somehow. Yeah, wrecked it now. Something must be able to disconnect. Okay, that disconnects, and then it will slide out the other direction. Okay, 400 volt 47 mic cap, transformer, some filtering there, some Y class and X, and a common mode choke, some kind of diode thing, and that's the bridge rectifier. So they put 2 of the diodes on this little subboard thing. Well, they're not soldered to it, that's just an insulator. Looks bent, doesn't it? What do we got? Just 2 TO220, so that's a rectifier on the output, on the secondary, and then a transistor on the primary. It looks like it's some self-oscillating thing. There's no control chip. There's IC201. Oh, there is some sort of hybrid board controller thing. Ah, and that's the optocoupler. That's interesting. Photo transistor. Sony branded. C adjust. I wonder if that's current limit adjust for the battery charging. It makes sense if that's why it takes a lot longer to charge when you're charging more than one battery. If it's a constant current output regulated by this. So that means all the business that's on here is just like monitoring the charge or sharing the current, not actually doing the regulation. Got some other similar like battery shaped power supplies from some other equipment that we'll take a look at in due course. And to put it back together, we should not forget the insulator. Otherwise bad things will happen. So that's in the right position. Guess we should just screw that and then try and get these terminal things in. Okay, that's fine. There's shorter screws for the end cap things. I'm going to tighten that. The heatsink, very good. So it's all put back together. Nice power supply. Let's get this thing all back together. I had quite a bit of trouble working out which way round this stuff went. It's a bit confusing because those tabs came out on top of this, which what I don't know still is how many of these things get screwed on now and how many of them are part of another piece of housing. So do I put these screws in now? I think it's a couple of weeks since I took it apart, so it's all memory now. Well, I suppose I could watch the video back, but where's the fun in that? So this little board went on the bottom here. Oh yeah, it's got a slot. I suppose those things were in that clip as well. I suppose that was in there. Yeah, looks like that connects into there. So there is one screw hole under there, maybe this goes in it. Might be possible to hear rain. Yeah. Okay, we've got the other part here with the mechanism. That way, I guess. But what goes first? So this thing sits here, I guess. That stuff comes up to the... Maybe we can put that control panel thing back in. Do we need some plastic thread type screws? I suppose I should clean it a bit. I'm just assuming that these are the right screws for holding this board in. Well, they're the shortest plastic thread type screws. It seems okay, they haven't bottomed out. Could be that one. Seems to be okay. So now this part goes in here. Just sits in there. What a strange construction. And then we got all these things to join up. There's the two little earth wire thingies that plug together. And then there's these main power type data, whatever, video, everything connectors. I wonder if I put that in the wrong place. Oh, that doesn't go there. Okay, something else must go there. Oh, that might be the viewfinder. The other one we've got is this, which was laid in like that, presumably up to the microphone. This one goes onto the bottom. So that was in the clip thing. Are there other earth wires to do up? Or ground wires? And there's that thing, which goes up to there, which it doesn't seem to be able to reach anymore. Done something to it. So that goes onto there. Just plugs on, and then there was that ground strap there. I haven't soldered back yet from when I was taking apart the camera assembly. Okay, let's solder back that ground strap. Good. Bend that extra bit out of the way. Then when we're finished plugging stuff in, this flap will go over it. This will have to go on the side. Power input there with this wire that goes somewhere. I wonder if that was under there to start with. Could have been. And then there's these two which go underneath, which is the zoom controls and the record VTR control. Then I remember there's a tiny little screw goes into the top of probably that. Holds all this down. You still have to plug something into there. Did that go in here? Yeah. It went in a weird place like that. And that. Maybe nothing holds it. Just sort of holds itself there. Is this even more haphazard than the JVC camera? cameras. Now, was there something in that originally? I don't know, I can't remember. Not much else. There's a bottom panel and a top panel thing that has the microphone connector on it. And there's this, which I think that went there. So maybe that's it. I don't think there's any other bits around here that we haven't attached. Yeah, that just goes there. That goes on there. That screws down with the tiny little screw. Presumably it's this ultra little screw. Okay, maybe a very small screwdriver. This one. There's another screw there, which I don't know if that comes from the outside or not. Doesn't look like it, so maybe that's what the other little silver screw goes to. I don't know about that. Seems a bit dodgy because it's quite a long screw, and this tucks itself together. Presumably that comes like that. That goes in there, and that pushes down into it. It just hugs itself together. Oh, okay, that goes in there. That's why that wasn't sitting nice and flat. It means we're ready to put the side on, potentially. This side. Yes, get that in there. Well, that's kind of going together, isn't it? And there's something up here. Not quite all together yet. So all that part down here is good. But up here, it seems to be not quite lined up. This, which hooks into there. Look at that, that's nice. Yeah, the trick is now we've got to work out which ones are the plastic screws and which ones are not. Well, those two there are definitely plastic screws. That one there, not sure. Nice thing sliding into their existing cut thread, so that's good. And all these metal machine screw type things are all the same size. Two there. I'll put the dirtier ones on the bottom because you won't see them. I think that's all good for the bottom side. I don't know if there's any other thing we have to put on before we can attach this. Okay, it seems to be alright. Let's see if that goes in there. Yep, nice and easy. This little cover thing. Now we've got 3 screws left. Do we have any place to put them? There must have been something internally that I forgot to do up. Okay, there's one slot there. The viewfinder's all reassembled. Okay, I suspect there's something under here that I didn't put together, or somewhere else. Those aren't screw holes, that's just where the RF modulator thing goes in. Wondering, should I take this off again and check? The one's there, the others, don't know, I don't think they're from the outside. There's nothing on the back, probably deep inside somewhere. Yeah, but all the other internal screws were the silver color, whereas these are the black color. Okay, there's one there. So those are all handled by this lid. Yeah, maybe there was one under the, or others under the bottom cover maybe. So there's nothing else visible over here. So let's put that back. Why doesn't that want to go in? So it was better without that screw done up. So I've misaligned something. There's something missing. Are you sure there's something missing there? Oh, there. Okay. That bit's not screwed on. That's what's going on there. I don't even know what type of screw that's supposed to be. I don't think it's supposed to be one of these. Yeah, so that's the thing I was thinking about, is that has to go in that slot. But those wires also are trying to go in that place. Ah, okay, so that's where another one of the screws is supposed to go under here to hold that. Is it really supposed to go there? Okay, finally got it in. So we've got that back together. Now the bottom part goes on with relative ease. And that's it. Now we have used up all the screws. Well, that's good. So we found where the screws went. Okay, the microphone, viewfinder. Now, power up. Okay, flip on, yes. That's good. Seems to be working, but the focus is a bit naff. Do we need to test the tape? Guessing it's now got my tape stuck in there. No, it didn't get stuck in there. Okay, it's gone into play mode. And yeah, it's playing back, but you can hear it crunching the tape again like it was before. So there you have it. Sony CCD-V8AF. Sort of working, but not very well. Video camera from quite a long time ago. 8mm camera. Thanks for watching.